President Biden stopped at the U.S. Mexico border on his way to Mexico City, where he announced new crackdowns on asylum seekers amid the record number of migrants arriving at the border. Biden says that his administration will now deny people from Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Haiti the chance to apply for asylum if they cross the Mexican border without authorization between official ports of entry. Here's part of Biden's address on the matter.
My administration is taking several steps to stiffen enforcement for those who try to come without a legal right to stay, and to put in place a faster process, I emphasize a faster process, to decide a claim of asylum. Someone says, I'm coming because I'm escaping oppression. Well, there's got to be a way to determine that much quicker.
Biden goes on to say, my message is this: if you're trying to leave Cuba, Nicaragua, or Haiti, or have agreed to begin a journey to America, do not just show up at the border. As The Intercept's Max Granger points out, it is legal to arrive when seeking asylum, saying glaring factual error in this headline at the New York Times. Seeking asylum is legal regardless of method of entry. Please issue a correction. A more accurate headline: Biden announces major crackdown on asylum in violation of U.S. and international law. Human rights groups and immigration advocates have actually denounced the move. What say you, Batya?
I just think that this is just ridiculous. Let's start with the fact that he's telling people not to come, but he's authorized 30,000 parolees from each of those countries for people who we know do not qualify for asylum. I mean, everybody acting like these people have an asylum case knows that that is not true. We know that these are economic migrants. And look, we can say, look, we have room in this country for economic migrants, right? But essentially, by calling them people who are seeking asylum, by calling them asylees, by calling them refugees, you are essentially making it de facto the rule that they're going to come here and be forced to work illegally under the table for decades to come, because they're not going to qualify for asylum, and then they're not going to leave. They're using Title 42, the Biden administration, an expanded version of Title 42 to do this. Title 42, which, recall, the Biden administration itself tried to get rid of. So it only still exists because the Supreme Court opposed the Biden administration's attempt to axe this Trump-era policy, because the truth is, they're right. We're no longer in a pandemic. But right now, Title 42 is effectively the only means Border Patrol has for turning people away. You know, we know what works in terms of securing the border because we had a president just 2 short years ago who was extremely effective at doing that. And on day one, the first thing President Biden did was get rid of everything that worked and then proceed to try his best to get rid of everything else. So, you know, they've been telegraphing to the cartels, they've been telegraphing to the migrants, they've been telegraphing to everybody that the border is open. The cartels heard them loud and clear. Essentially, the Democratic Party has turned the cartels into a jobs fair. They are using the cartels to import cheap labor, a new slave class to work service industry jobs and to drive down the wages of the American working class. It's absolutely deplorable. This is too little, too late.
Well, but Batya, how can you say that they're saying that they're, you know, giving intellectual or vocal support to the kind of cartel mindset? If, I mean, Biden just said, don't do exactly that. Don't come here that way. If you want to come to the U.S., you need a sponsor and you need to go through all these steps and you need to board a plane flight. You can't just rush the border. Isn't that what he just said?
I mean, he said that, but then he coupled that with 30,000 guaranteed parolees for people from all of those 4 countries who can find a sponsor in America, right? So on the one hand, yeah, it's great that he said don't come, right? But on the other hand, he's sort of, with one hand, he's saying don't come, and with the other hand, he's offering, you know, these people basically a ticket in, right? So what is that actually going to achieve? It's just mind-boggling. I think to normal Americans, they look at President Biden, they cannot understand, like, why did he get rid of everything that President Trump had done that was so effective? Like, literally from day one, that was his promise. And we saw 2.2 million people immediately rushed the border, got the message, including the cartels, of course, right? There's no real desire on the part of the Democratic Party to address immigration. And the reason for that is because, you know, the issue of immigration is not a political one. It's a class one. Working class Americans, their jobs are the ones that are threatened by people who come here, mass immigration. educated elites who are now the Democratic Party's base, right? They can afford to have all of these pieties and talk about, refugees and asylum because these people aren't threatening their jobs. So at the end of the day, I mean, I just feel that the Democratic Party has every incentive to keep gaslighting Americans on this and do nothing about it. And that's exactly what we're seeing here.
Well, you and I disagree on this a little bit. I don't care, frankly, if they're threatening people's jobs. That's fine with me. What I care about is
Robby,
the people, the communities bordering the border overrun with tent cities and bad conditions, the humanitarian conditions, bad for the immigrants, bad for the people who live there. I understand their frustration, and I think the process by which most immigrants are coming that way is really bad and needs to be fixed, and would best be fixed by saying, okay, don't do that. The asylum thing is stupid, but here's the process, and it's a process that's easy and doesn't take years. And then you can come here, you can fly in. You don't have to go with the cartels. You don't have to cross muddy rivers. You don't have to live in a tent in El Paso or wherever. You can just enter the country and work and contribute and pay taxes, and America will be better off economically. And yes, some people who are competing for the lowest rung jobs, maybe they face more competition, but the price of food and goods and everything goes down for everyone, including those people, and then maybe they can get lifted up into better positions. I think that's a better system than one where we deliberately try to protect the low jobs for our existing workforce, which is not economically efficient for anyone. And the big thing to me is addressing just this chaos of having people coming in under conditions that aren't good for them and that are clearly prompting a lot of, I think, understandable frustration in places like Texas and so on. But I mean, frankly, what I heard from Biden is, I guess, along those lines. Obviously, much more has to be done, and ultimately, Congress needs to do something, which I don't know if there's any chance of that.
Well, hopefully with this new Congress, one of the conditions that Kevin McCarthy had to agree to in order to placate the rebel faction was about, Texas border legislation. So hopefully we'll see some movement on that front. But you're totally right. This is, it's the administration plus Congress. Mm-hmm.
And you can't use. I am fine though to not use COVID justification policies. I got to be, not a hypocrite about that. We are not in a COVID emergency anymore. Biden has said we are not in a COVID emergency anymore. That means COVID policies that were put in place that many of them I was against in the first place, and I never wanted to give the government this authority when it's an emergency, which sounds like something that could be very easily abused. But that's all got to go. That includes Title 42, in my view. But we'll see.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And they have to have the courage to say, look, we know which countries people have legitimate asylum claims from and which ones don't. There are people who have legitimate asylum claims who are actually being persecuted for being gay across the world, who are waiting for a chance to come to America and have their asylum case heard. And that is not going to happen because economic migrants are flooding the system, and they do not. Somebody has to be able to say the truth. And it's mind numbing that you can't get that out of the president. Or most of our politicians. But anyway, I guess we'll have to leave it at that.
More Rising right after this. Stay with us.